Beneath the vast, dark blanket of the ocean lies a mysterious world silent, ancient, and full of secrets. Among its many hidden places is a remarkable site known as the Lost City, a real hydrothermal vent community unlike any other. But beyond its rare geology, what truly captivates is what it reveals about human curiosity, psychology, and evolution. Imagine this. You are aboard a deep-sea vessel, slowly descending into a place where sunlight has never reached. The pressure outside is immense, pressing against the hull like an invisible force. You feel both fear and awe. Your heart beats a little faster, not from panic, but from wonder. This is the primal instinct of survival meeting the thrill of discovery. It's not just science. It's a human calling. There it is, the Lost City. Towering white limestone chimneys rise from the seabed, spewing warm, mineral-rich water into the black ocean round them. They are not part of any ancient civilization, and yet they are very much alive. Here, an entire ecosystem thrives in total darkness, not powered by the sun, but by the chemical energy rising from the Earth's mantle. Strange, resilient microorganisms live here, feeding on hydrogen and methane, showing us just how flexible life can be. Studying these vents allows scientists to understand the very beginnings of life on Earth. Life did not necessarily begin in warm, shallow seas bathed in sunlight. It might have begun in places like this, deep beneath the waves. These vents challenge our assumptions about where life can exist and open new possibilities for finding life on other planets and moons. But the Lost City also teaches us something about ourselves. It tells the story of how humans, too, must adapt to survive. How we've evolved not just physically, but socially and emotionally. It tells of our need to collaborate, to build, to explore together. Deep-sea research is never a solo endeavor. It requires teamwork, planning, trust, and resilience. It shows us our hunger to push boundaries, to stare into the darkness and say, I must know what lies beyond. The Lost City's delicate beauty is also a warning. This fragile ecosystem is vulnerable to our activities, our thirst for resources, our tendency to exploit rather than protect, could destroy something so ancient and rare. We must learn to explore with care, to study without harming, and to appreciate without needing to own. In discovering the Lost City, we don't just look outward, we look inward. We find stories of perseverance and cooperation, of life thriving against all odds, and perhaps most beautifully, we find a reason to dream of worlds hidden in the dark, of knowledge waiting to be found, and of a future where we live not apart from nature, but in balance with it. So let this story stay with you as you drift into sleep. Let it fill your thoughts with glowing chimneys, silent oceans, and ancient life whispering in the deep. Close your eyes, breathe slowly, and dream of the Lost City. In the crushing darkness, every sound becomes a symphony. The hum of machines, the distant calls from the control room. Even the rhythm of your own heartbeat feels magnified. You are not just observing the ocean. You are immersed in it. The weight of the water above presses down, but you press on, deeper into the mystery. And then you see it. A pale blue shimmer emerges from the murk. It's not sunlight. It's something else entirely. The vents of the Lost City come into view, glowing faintly in the darkness. Their limestone towers stretch upward like frozen ghosts, exhaling mineral-rich breath into the sea. It looks alive. The vents release warm plumes that shimmer like breath in winter air. Round them, colonies of strange life forms cling and drift. They do not fear the dark or the heat. They thrive in it. This city breathes, and in its breath, life stirs. The microorganisms that live here are ancient, unlike anything on the surface. They feed not on light, but on chemicals. They remind you of early Earth, of life's first steps, and in this alien place, you see a reflection of us, creatures adapting, surviving, creating homes in even the harshest corners. This Lost City is a mirror. It shows us not only where life might have started, but also who we are now. Explorers, survivors, dreamers, builders. We reach into the unknown, not to escape our world, but to understand it and ourselves. As days passed beneath the surface, the team began to notice something remarkable. A rhythm in the chaos. Geysers of mineral-rich fluids erupted not randomly, but with a strange regularity, as if the vent community had a pulse, a breath of its own. This realization shifted the tone of their work. The lost city was not merely a curiosity. It was alive in its own alien way. In their daily observations, they discovered new species: tiny shrimp that shimmered like pearls, blind crabs with delicate, almost translucent shells, and bacteria that glowed softly in the dark waters. These creatures lived in harmony, forming a symbiotic web, a natural alliance woven by the harshness of their environment. Every discovery brought awe, as if they were flipping through the pages of an ancient, forgotten book. At night, aboard the ship above, the team gathered to review footage and exchange stories. These weren't just scientific debriefings, they were quiet reflections. They pondered not only the biology of the lost city, but also its poetry, its philosophy. What did it mean for a life to flourish without sunlight? What did it say about life on Earth or beyond? The deeper they went, the more profound the psychological journey became. The ocean was no longer just a body of water, it was a mirror, a place where each scientist came face to face with their fears, dreams, and longings. To descend was not only to explore the seafloor, but also to dive into oneself. The lost city became a sanctuary of both science and soul. Sometimes they would sit in silence, watching the vents erupt with ghostly steam, listening to the hum of the deep. It reminded them of the heartbeat of the earth, steady, ancient, and indifferent, and in that indifference they found a strange comfort, a reminder that life goes on, regardless of who watches. One morning, while piloting the submersible, a researcher spotted a curious formation, a chimney shaped like an open hand, reaching up from the seafloor. It looked sculpted, as if nature had tried to mimic the human form. They named it the Hand of Echoes. It became a symbol for the team, a silent gesture from the deep, as if the ocean was extending a greeting. Or perhaps a warning. News of their discoveries began to reach the surface world. Journalists, environmentalists, and artists were captivated by the lost city. But with attention came concern. Would fame bring disturbance? Would mining interests come sniffing? The team grew protective of the site. It wasn't just science anymore, it was a sacred place on board. Debates grew intense. Should they publish all their findings? Should they reveal the coordinates? Ethics clashed with curiosity. In the end, they chose discretion. The lost city was too precious, too vulnerable. Some knowledge, they agreed, was better kept secret, at least for now. During the late-night dive, the lead biologist had a dreamlike vision. As they hovered near the vents, they saw not just life forms, but echoes of humanity. The bacteria's glow reminded them of city lights. The chimneys rose like skyscrapers. Was the lost city reflecting civilization back at them? Or was it a glimpse of something primordial? Before us, beyond us, the mission was nearing its end. Supplies were running low, and the team felt the bittersweet pull of departure. Yet none of them would leave unchanged. The lost city had transformed them not just as scientists, but as people. They had touched something timeless, something sacred, and in return, it had left an imprint on their souls. Deep within the towering chimneys, mineral-rich waters flowed with a soft hiss, like whispers from the earth's memory. Each bubble that rose was a story, a molecule remembering where it had been beneath mountains, within ancient stone, passing through unseen chambers for millennia. These whispers reminded us that the earth itself dreams slow, deep dreams stretching through epochs. Unlike the bustling coral reefs, the lost city thrived in near silence. Microbes, invisible to the eye, performed an eternal dance fueled not by sunlight, but by chemical reactions. Here, life did not rush. It flowed measured, patient. This stillness was not emptiness. It was focus, purpose, existence distilled into simplicity. Scientists whispered theories into the dark waters. Could life have begun here? In vents like these, where warmth met chemistry, and solitude birthed complexity. The lost city stood not just as a curiosity, but as a possible mirror to the very beginnings of life itself. Down here, the pressure could crush steel, yet life adapted. The microbes formed protective layers, evolved enzymes to withstand the crushing weight. They didn't resist the pressure, they danced with it. A lesson, perhaps, for humanity. There were no lights, no buildings, but in the folds of the chimneys, among layers of calcium and sulfur, was a teeming metropolis invisible to human eyes, a city not of concrete, but of cooperation. Each cell played a role. Every species had a place, harmony in darkness, reactions fizzed softly. A subtle song composed by the earth. Hydrogen met carbon, minerals transformed. Each transformation played a note in a grand, silent symphony, a symphony written over eons, for no one but heard by those who listened deeply. Time moved differently here. No day, no night. Only the slow tick of geological clocks, stone forming, cracks widening, minerals drifting. For humans, time rushes. Here, it lingers and teaches us patience, though it seemed lifeless. Small creatures lurked, tiny shrimp, pale crabs, adapted to darkness. Their eyes had evolved into sensors, not to see light, but to feel heat, chemicals, and vibration. Sight is only one way to know the world. The warmth here came not from the sun, but from the earth's molten heart. Deep below, magma stood, feeding the vents. Life danced on the breath of the planet's inner fire. Not all fire burns. Some nurtures dot no streets, no signs. Yet the lost city felt known, as if it existed not on maps, but in the memories of oceans, in the marrow of mountains. Some places do not need names. They are felt, not spoken. The stones of the lost city spoke without words, their shapes, curves, and layers told tales of pressure, temperature, and time. Each formation was a sentence, each crack, a pause, each shimmer, a breath. You did not read these stones. You listened to them with your stillness. Hydrogen seeped slowly from the core of the earth, like a breath exhaled over centuries. As it met carbon, tiny explosions of life unfolded. Unseen yet continuous, this breath did not waver. The planet was not silent. It was breathing. Creatures who had never seen sunlight guarded these chimneys, not with claws or teeth, but with presence. They belonged here, woven into the chemistry of the place. Not all guardians were armor. Some simply endure. If the earth could dream, what would it see? Perhaps places like this, lonely, deep, yet filled with the quiet pulse of life. The lost city was one of those dreams, not fleeting, enduring. A dream that never needed to awaken. Down here, there was no sunlight, and yet the world glowed in its own way. Bioluminescent bacteria flickered gently. Minerals sparkled under unseen energies. Light was not gone. It had simply changed form. Even in darkness, radiance finds wateric fluids met alkaline rock. The result was creation, not destruction. Structures rose from the reaction towers of stone, fragile yet eternal, like dancers who meet mid-spin, and become something more. Even contrast can build. No one charted this place with ink. Its map was written in chemical gradients, temperature flows, and ancient movement. The creatures knew the paths. They needed no compass. Some maps live in memory, not on paper. If you listened closely, you'd hear nothing, and in that nothing, everything. The absence of human sound revealed a deeper presence of currents, of chemistry, of old rhythms. Stillness is not silence. It is listening at another frequency. There were no borders here. The lost city welcomed all shrimp, Microbes, minerals, warmth. It was not a kingdom. It was a community, vast and wordless. No flags, just belonging. Scientists came with instruments and theories. Yet the more they studied, the more questions rose. What was life? How did it begin? Could it begin again? The lost city did not answer. It invited you to wonder. The rocks held memory better than minds, layer by layer. They remembered earthquakes, oceans, the heat of creation. They did not forget. They simply waited to be read. Some stories take 1,000,000 years to be told. There was no night or day here, no clocks, no sunsets, and yet life moved constantly slow, patient, unstoppable. Microbes multiplied in silence. Heat whispered from the core. The city did not sleep. It evolved. Deep beneath, sulfur met life. Heat met molecules. The impossible met reality. Gold was not the treasure here transformation was. The ocean floor was an alchemist, turning the raw into the living. Sound traveled differently here. It curved. It softened. It held secrets. Whales passed above, unaware of the city beneath them. Their songs vibrated the towers below. The city heard, but did not speak. Creatures adapted to pressure like monks to silence. Their bodies were built not to resist, but to surrender. Muscles coiled gently, organs reshaped without pain. They lived where others couldn't breathe. This silence wasn't empty. It was full of knowing. The city didn't cry out to be found. It didn't beg for understanding. It simply existed, sure of its place, its purpose, its poetry. Some truths do not need voices. All life here was born not of sun, but of heat. Tiny beings thrived on chemical fire. No leaves, no roots, no chlorophyll-only reaction. They were the children of Earth's warmth, and they multiplied in the dark. There were no books here, no ink, no shelves, but knowledge was everywhere in the DNA of microbes, in the shape of towers, in the chemistry of the water. You didn't read it, you felt it. Beneath all things, there was a pulse, faint, steady, ancient, like a memory long buried. It beat on slow and sure, not human, not animal, its own rhythm. And if you listened long enough, you could hear if lost city was not done growing. It was still unfolding, still changing, still becoming. Like a slow bloom under miles of sea, like a thought forming without words. It was not lost, it was becoming. As the submarine drifted further along the ridge, the sonar pinged softly in the background. The ocean was still, and the only movement came from the slow rotation of propellers ahead. The limestone towers began to cluster closer together, creating a natural corridor between their ancient white walls. The pilot adjusted the course, gliding smoothly between them. The sight was like entering a forgotten cathedral, quiet, solemn, and sacred. It was as if the ocean itself was holding its breath. The researchers on board spoke in hushed voices, as though any loud sound might disturb the fragile beauty of this world. They spotted clusters of shrimp clinging to the chimneys, their translucent bodies glowing faintly from within. Life here didn't just survive, it flourished in darkness. Every creature was a testament to nature's resilience, adapted perfectly to this sunless, high-pressure existence. No one knew how long these vents had supported life. Perhaps centuries, perhaps more. Dr. Leina leaned toward the screen. Her eyes locked on a tiny shimmering bubble escaping from a crevice in the rock. It's hydrogen, she whispered. Pure energy. The bubble floated upward and disappeared. It was a small thing, but it hinted at something monumental. Life in the lost city didn't rely on sunlight or oxygen. It relied on chemistry. And where chemistry could sustain life here, maybe it could do so somewhere else in the universe. A soft current stirred the water, carrying tiny particles past the sub. The team watched as one particle, no bigger than a grain of sand, caught the light and shimmered gold. Dr. Malik chuckled. Even the smallest thing down here can feel like treasure. The others smiled. In this place, value wasn't about money, it was about meaning. Every observation, every motion, was a reminder that the unknown still held wonders. Night passed above the waves, though in the deep it was always night. Still, there was a strange sense of time. The team logged each moment, taking turns resting, watching, recording. Even silence had a sound, the hum of the ocean, the echo of distant water movement, the heartbeat of the earth. Down here, you felt small, but strangely, not insignificant. It was humbling, peaceful, like being wrapped in a dream that asked for nothing but Dr. Laina scribbled quietly in her journal, her pen gliding with ease. Day 12. She wrote, and still I feel like we've only just arrived. There was a strange timelessness here. Days didn't pass in the usual way. Instead, they drifted, like currents, like dreams. Her notes weren't just scientific, they were personal. Feelings, thoughts, even moments of stillness were recorded. As though the lost city were gently shaping her from the inside out. As the lights from the sub illuminated a new stretch of train, they revealed something unexpected. A flat stone platform, shaped almost like a staircase, leading up to a jag vent. It seemed constructed. Dr. Malik leaned forward, heart racing. It's probably natural, he murmured, but the symmetry was unsettling. What if nature wasn't the only architect here? What if something or someone had once walked these paths? They sent out the probe again, letting it glide ahead of the sub like a curious fish. Its camera scanned the platform closely. No tools, no carvings, but there was an eerie cleanliness to it, as if it had been swept by something large and deliberate. Laina whispered, "Maybe we're not the first ones here." For a moment, silence stretched across the cabin like a tight thread. The crew gathered for a short meal. Even in such an extraordinary place, life needed routine. They passed bread, sipped broth, and talked softly about surface things, families, books, silly jokes. The lost city was majestic, but it was also lonely. Each story shared at the table brought warmth, a fragile human light in the deep cold. It reminded them that wonder alone could not replace connection. Later that night, Laina sat alone at the observation window. Out in the dark, bioluminescent specks floated slowly like stars in a drifting sky. She pressed her fingers to the glass. "You're not empty," she said softly. "You're just waiting." The ocean said nothing, but something about its silence felt alive, like a guardian, like a keeper of secrets older than woods. A soft tremor stirred the walls of the sub, barely noticeable, but it made the coffee ripple in Lina's cup. "Did you feel that?" she asked. Dr. Malik nodded slowly. Pressure shift. Or they both looked at the monitor. The seafloor map was changing just slightly. Something beneath the layers was moving. Something old. Something deep. They descended another 30 meters, following a narrow canyon that twisted like a serpent's spine. Strange mineral formations glowed faintly on either side. "It's beautiful," whispered Ahmed, but the silence was thicker now. It wasn't just the depth. It was expectation, like the city itself was waiting for them to ask the right question. At the end of the canyon, they found it, a towering archway of pale stone, completely unnatural in form. It wasn't carved, it had grown that way. Spirals of crystal emerged from its base, rising like frozen vines. "This is a gate," Malik said. "But to where?" No one answered. Even Laina couldn't speak. They simply floated before it, hearts quiet. Like pilgrims before a forgotten altar, Lena reached out and touched the arch through her glove. A low hum echoed through the sub's metal frame. The lights dimmed for a breath, and then the arch shimmered, just for a second, like heat rising from pavement. But there was no heat here. Only ice and pressure and memory. Something is responding, she whispered. That night, no one slept. They reviewed the footage over and over. The shimmer, the hum. The map shifting slightly like breath beneath stone. Lena wrote one sentence in her journal before turning off the light. Maybe it's not a ruin. Maybe it's still alive. The morning arrived in muted blues, filtered through miles of water. Lena sat quietly in the observation dome, watching tiny bioluminescent creatures swirl like stars in a slow galaxy. Her thoughts drifted. What does it mean for a something ancient to still be awake? The gate wasn't a relic. It was a heartbeat still faint, but steady. They prepared a probe, small, certainly, and built for precision. As it drifted through the arch, the readings went wild. Gravity dipped for a second. Magnetic fields twisted like knots. The team stared in silence as the camera's feed turned white, then black, then nothing. The signal was gone, like it had fallen into a dream froze. They debated, go in or retreat. The city had not shown hostility, only silence, only mystery. But curiosity, as always, was louder than fear. Lena adjusted her suit's seals. I want to see what it dreams about, she said softly. No one stopped her, because they all wanted to know. The water around the gate was thicker somehow, as if saturated with time. The moment Lena passed through, she felt it, a weight, but not crushing, more like memory pressing close. Lights flickered along the gate's edge, like it was reading her, remembering her, maybe even welcoming her inside. Everything changed. There was no silt, no sound. The water felt quiet, still. Ahead, impossible towers of coral and crystal spiraled upward, and touched by each, glowing veins pulsed beneath the walls. And then, in the distance, music, not from an instrument. It was the city itself, humming a lullaby older than language. Lena floated forward slowly, the lullaby growing clearer. It wasn't just sound, it was memory turned into music. Each note wrapped round her like a forgotten lullaby from childhood. The walls shimmered with light in response to her heartbeat. As if the city was alive, as if it remembered love. She passed a structure shaped like a shell, with open windows and spiraling steps that led to nowhere. Inside were murals vast and flowing, depicting beings of light tending to coral like gardeners. They had no faces, only outlines, but their movements were soft, kind, almost mournful. In the central atrium, water turned to mist. It hung in the air like glass, frozen in time. Lena moved slowly through it, each breath echoing in her helmet. Then came a hum, not of danger, but of recognition. The city had noticed her, and it wasn't alone. From behind a column, a shape emerged. Not machine, not creature, but something in between. Its body flickered like old film, and its voice was a soft, layered whisper. You returned. Lena's breath caught. No, she whispered. I'm new here. The shape tilted its head. But your soul remembers. It reached out not with hands, but with memory. Images flooded her mind. A garden of glass, a farewell in twilight, a promise whispered underwater. Then it stepped back and bowed, as if granting her permission. The city, ancient and dreaming, had accepted her presence. For now, Lena stepped deeper into the mist. The further she walked, the quieter the city became, not in silence, but in stillness, the kind of silence that holds its breath, waiting. The walls were made of a pearlescent stone that pulsed faintly with an inner light, like memories sealed within. There were statues tall, gentle, and eroded by time. Not kings or warriors, but scholars, musicians, and dreamers. Each face bore the same expression, peace mixed with longing, as if even in stone they waited for something to return, or someone. She paused before a small platform, shaped like a fallen leaf. Etched into the floor was a script she didn't recognize, but somehow understood. It read, "We built this place not to be found, but to be remembered," and Lena did remember. Though she could not say why, a melody began to rise from the floor. It wasn't played, it bloomed. Like a scent, notes drifted through the chamber like drifting feathers, carrying emotion more than sound. Lena sat, eyes closed, allowing herself to be carried. It felt like morning. It felt like home. The ground beneath her shimmered. And suddenly she wasn't in the city anymore. She stood in a field of soft white grass beneath two moons. The stars above pulsed gently like heartbeat signals, and a voice familiar and old whispered, "You're close now. One more memory remains." Lena stepped through the pale grass, each blade whispering secrets as it brushed her legs. The air felt ancient, like it had held the breath of generations. A silver archway stood ahead, pulsing gently. Beyond it, shadows danced like memories waking. She crossed the threshold and the world changed again. She stood now in a chamber made of mirrored water, every surface rippled with the shapes of those who once lived here, children laughing, hands writing scrolls, quiet embraces under stars. The city was remembering itself. At the center stood a figure made of light and silence. It had no face, but felt familiar like the echo of someone she once loved. The figure reached out, and Lena felt warmth spread from her chest. Not fear, not awe, but recognition. Heart. Double quotes Lena understood. She had never found the city, she had brought it with her, preserved in stories, in dreams. In longing that never faded, the chamber dimmed, the figure faded, and Lena stood alone once more. But now, she carried the city inside her not as a place to explore, but as a truth to remember. A whisper of something eternal, something gently forgotten, something quietly found. Agatha's path back from the chamber was not the same. It wound gently upward, through veils of mist and falling petals. Each step felt like the end of a lullaby, soft, slow, and inevitable. Lena heard the city's voice in the wind. Not words, but feelings, gratitude, peace, and a bittersweet farewell. The trees leaned inward as she passed, their branches forming silent arches, blessing her return. She emerged from the ruins under the same twilight sky where it all began. But the silence was no longer empty. It held memories now woven gently into the dusk like golden threads in fading cloth. Lane looked back one last time. The city was gone, or perhaps simply asleep once more, and that was enough. Some wonders are not meant to be kept but remembered, like dreams too precious to hold. She walked on, the stars lighting her path home. Behind her, the sand settled. Beneath them, the lost city breathed again in silence at peace, hidden and timeless, waiting gently for the next soul who dreamed. Lena stood once more at the great stone gate, the very place where her journey had begun. But now, everything looked different. The sky was the same soft gold, but her heart was fuller, her thoughts deeper. Behind her, the city pulsed with the quiet breath of time, silent, ancient, eternal. The wind no longer howled, but hummed a gentle melody, as if the stones themselves were singing her farewell. She looked back one last time. The towers, half buried in sand, still whispered secrets from a time that no longer existed. The murals glowed faintly in the golden light, like echoes of forgotten dreams. Lena smiled. She hadn't just discovered ruins, she had touched a soul. The city had welcomed her not as an intruder, but as a listener, and now its memory lived within her. She turned and walked away, slowly, feeling the soft sands beneath her feet. The wind carried no weight, only calm. As the horizon opened up, she whispered a promise. "You won't be forgotten." And as the sun set behind the dunes, the lost city slipped quietly back into myth, resting in peace in the minds of those willing to remember. And far away, someone slept a little easier, comforted by the story of what once was.